Today's episode of Bump to Business Owner is proudly sponsored by Accountant She, the disruptive, holistic, and person-centered accounting team helping to take you from bump to business owner and beyond. From fully outsourcing your business finances to strategic and enhanced maternity planning, we've got you covered. And if you don't need an accountant just yet, but want completely free, accessible, consumable financial education, then you can find me everywhere that you consume content at accountant_she.
Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall, and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I am your host, Caroline Marshall, and I am so pleased to welcome today Rachel Harris, Accountant She. She is an award-winning content creator, author, speaker, a business owner of StriveX, and most importantly, an accountant. She was named as one to watch on the 35 under 35 list. She recently won the first Intuition Apprenticeship Mentor of the Year award for 2023 and won Breakout Star of the Year by Accounting Excellence and Accounting Personality of the Year 2023 by PQ Magazine. In addition to the above, she is director of StriveX, which she runs with her husband James, which is a much broader paperless accountancy and tax advisory firm that uses cloud software to provide a digital solution for your everyday accounting. Rachel was awarded with the Apprenticeship Mentor of the Year Awards in 2023 for her close work with her team to strive towards their professional qualifications. Rachel has also grown her Accountant She community to over 90,000 people, which is a portfolio of social media platforms where she creates long and short-form content for accountants in training, qualified accountants, and small business owners who want to learn more about finance. She wanted to build the community that she didn't have when she decided to become an accountant and become the role model she wished she had. She is a role model to aspiring accountants, and in 2022, she became the youngest ever director and trustee of AAT. In January of 2023, she launched the first ever corporate bursary scheme, which is a fully funded person for going through financial hardship through AAT level 2, 3 and 4, supported by one-to-one mentoring, study support and full tuition covered. And wow, what a long bio there. That's amazing.
You need to take
incredible.
a deep breath.
I think that's the hardest one I've ever read out. I'm definitely re-recording that. But I'm super excited to have you on, Rachel, my first non-mum, but supporter of, service provider to, and aspiring. So for anyone who doesn't know you, Rachel, where did this all start? What has led you to starting? Let's start with StriveX with your husband, James.
Yeah, of course. I am so excited to be here. Super honoured to be the first non-parent that you've let through the books into the podcast. Even more excited that we just get to spend the next half an hour together. So my name is Rachel and I am a disruptor in the accounting industry. And so I'm disrupting what it means to be an accountant, what it feels like, that word is double underlined, to have an accountant. And disrupting the concept that you can't scale a business to 7 figures without losing yourself along the way.
Love that.
And
we need that here. We need that on the podcast.
Need more people using feelings in the same sentences as their finances. And that's something that I definitely didn't have access to as a child, as a young person. I was a charity shop kid, a free school meal child, and actually was just a young woman who loved maths. So you can imagine school was really fun for me. But yeah, like just really determined to lower the barriers to entry to the finance profession for everybody, whether that is consuming it as a business owner, consuming it as a soon-to-be parent, consuming it as somebody who wants to be a business owner or wants to be a parent or wants to do both at the same time. And then also just lowering the barriers to people who want to become accountants and take part in the finance industry as well. So I own one of the UK's fastest scaling accountancy practices. We've scaled from a one-man band on our dining room table to a £1.5 million firm in under 4 years. And yeah, we do that by providing accountancy services, mortgage advice, financial advice, consulting advice. So I get to work with companies who are about to go on or have just come off shows like Dragon's Den. And yeah, just trying to reimagine the way that everybody approaches the finance industry. And just lean into that financial well-being muscle that, we're not born with that muscle. It's a muscle that we have to build and keep. I think for a really, really long time, the finance profession has alienated people away from their finances. And so it's my job to, through passion and content creation, and normally the color pink, just trying to really, really change the way people think about their finances.
I love that. And it's so needed, because actually me and my husband touched on this the other day about, I said it's kind of similar. We have someone recently who specializes in birth and explaining that for us. And I actually, a weird way of relating this is that I think sometimes in birth being highly medicalized, it's like they don't want us to understand it. And and it's not
100%.
necessarily conscious choice now of doctors, but it's just been the historical thing of like, well, this is a doctor's job, so it's too complicated for you. And I think the same with finance. This is a finance job. And then typically those roles have been with men or become highly medicalized, or, all of, finance is the same. And it's like, you don't need to worry about this. And it's like, yes, we do.
100%. And I a really strong part of our business scaling has been core values. And if anyone says to me, who do you work with? I say, I work with people that align with my core values. Full stop. Like, we don't specialize. We work with business owners, influencers, and celebrities in the UK. But the one thing they all have in common is core values. So literally based on what you just said, our core values are don't tell, ask, and to always ask more questions than you answer. Because again, in exactly the same way like medicine is treated, we don't want to be told, we want to be asked. And if someone comes to you with a question, don't just answer that question. The real pain point is probably 3 questions down. So for my job as an accountant, if someone comes and says, what's my tax bill going to be this year? The reality is they probably haven't just woken up with that question. The reality is something is keeping them awake at night. And so it could go from, what's my tax bill going to be this year? One question down from that is, my income has dropped this year because I'm in a cost of living crisis. The question down from that is, should I be increasing my prices because I've seen a drop in engagement in my service? Like, all of those things are 3 questions down. And again, bringing it back to medicine, like, we shouldn't just be treating the symptom. We need to be treating the cause. And by asking more questions than you answer at every touch point, that's how we can get to the really impactful financial conversations that normally only happen when you know, like, and trust the person that you're working with.
I love that. It's like, keep asking why. It's that 5 whys kind of
Yeah.
reason, and then you'll get to it, and then you'll get to it. And thank you for sharing your journey about your childhood a bit and that like a snippet of it, because you've had several things that have impacted you along the way that could easily be seen as barriers. Did I see you've suffered from hearing loss as well, Rachel?
Yes, I'm profoundly deaf. Yes, I have no hearing in one ear and then between 10 and 15% in the other. So I'm profoundly deaf. I wear 2 hearing aids. It's an invisible disability.
Yeah.
I wasn't born hard of hearing either. So my speech developed when I was hearing. So very often I don't sound deaf. I'm losing a little bit of speech now, but I generally don't sound that deaf. And so it's quite an invisible struggle, I guess. But I'm a very positive person, painfully positive most of the time, and have actually just really used it as an opportunity to bring lots of open conversations into the finance industry about accessibility, because we, at every touch point, ask clients, what are your communication preferences? For their benefit, but also for the benefit of our team. Like, I remember training in a really big firm, emailing clients, and there was absolutely no talk of, this person could be neurodivergent and like their inbox could be a complete hot mess.
Struggling.
And,
Yeah.
and like, they are not gonna answer that email. Like, that was not even something that was ever discussed. If I tried to call someone, it was never like, actually, they get quite bad anxiety talking about their finances. Why don't you put them in for a walk and talk? So we do walk and talk, which is where if someone has quite high levels of anxiety talking about finances, we both go on a walk and talk. Like, we use call recording software so we can transcribe and make notes of everything that was said.
Oh, you literally walk and talk virtually. I love
Oh
this. I've
yes,
not
like
heard of
if they
that.
book a walk and talk, and the team love it too, right? Like, that means from a team perspective, like, you get to go outside, you get to literally go outside and go for a walk. You can make some notes on your phone, you can have notes there. Obviously, we have to make sure that the type of call is appropriate for a walk and talk. But if it is just a general catch up, or you're going through a couple of queries, like, if you are someone that struggles with anxiety, or just actually just really has a lot of fear around their finances, doing something like that on a human level can really help to build the relationship, but also just meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And yeah, so communication preferences also come in because I have to be able to work with people in a way that works for me. So when I do things like this, I've got live transcription subtitles on my screen. I love emails. My inbox is my happy place. So I can like compensate for that. But lots of business owners, lots of service providers don't have that sort of like enhanced awareness of communication preferences. And so I am hard of hearing, I'm profoundly deaf, but I think one of the best bits about being self-employed is that I get to curate my working environment. I've then been able to pass all of that flexibility onto my team in terms of an incredible benefits package, hybrid working, work from anywhere, all of the things that make it a great place to work. So we're the top 30 SME employers in the UK, and like we are teeny tiny, but
Can
it's
I
that
come
sort of
work
stuff
for
that,
you?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it's those sort of things, like just meeting people where they're at when it comes to finances, because I think for so long it's our way or it's not done at all, and that just doesn't get people comfortable.
No, and I've got so many questions on that. Firstly, do you think going through things like the hearing loss or being the underdog essentially has made you so self-aware to do the work? Because I either feel like, like you said, you'll have some clients who may not even be aware they're ADHD and struggle with their inbox and it's a hot mess or something like that. But you are so aware, and that's because of the journey you've been on and you've done the work to make yourself aware of these things.
Yeah, I think the first TED talk that I did back in 2021 was all about how to scale a business as an introvert. And I think, yeah, like having a very high level of self-awareness can really help you to delegate, scale faster, lean into soft skills, be more core value driven. And I actually think sometimes even saying to a client, I have a disability, which is why I implemented this process, but you don't have to have a disability to just have a choice.
Yeah.
Like if you could choose, how would we communicate with you?
Yeah.
In order for you to sit here in 12 months time and you to score us a 10 out of 10, what do we need to do? Knowing that every single team member that speaks to you will check that box before they speak to you every time. And like sometimes people are so like blown away by even having a choice and being asked those questions, because it is quite rare, especially in professional services. Like even in a transactional relationship it's uncommon, but
Yes.
especially in professional services.
I think in very traditional professional services as well, where it's like, well, this is how we do things, and every firm does things this way. And can I ask, the ones who get anxiety about their finances, have you noticed a trend in demographics? Like, is it largely women versus men, or is it just can be anyone?
Yeah, a lot of women, I think. I mean, there's a whole other podcast episode about why, but yeah, lots and lots of women have very, very high levels of anxiety around finance. I think everybody has equal anxiety around finance. I think women have a lot of imposter syndrome, specifically when it comes to finance. And again, I think just surrounding yourself with people who really encourage you to like tackle it head on. Like I literally had a prospect call with someone who just came off Love Island last week, and she literally started the call and within the first minute told me, I'm not good at maths. I was not good at maths at school, and I do not want anything to do with my finances. By the end of the call, oh my God. By the end of the call, I had shared my screen. We'd gone and looked at Company's House. She was able to understand the difference between a profit and loss on her balance sheet. She was able to work out all of her deadlines from Company's House. She was also able, I taught her how to work out why every single time she files accounts, the Daily Mail runs stories on how much money she makes. How can they do that when there are restricted accounts on Company's House? I showed her how they calculate how much money they think she's making based on her accounts. I said to her, like, it's okay to not be good at maths, but I guarantee a terrible maths teacher told you that, and you have carried that for the rest of your life. Like, you might not love maths as much as I love maths, but nobody knows your business better than you. And that is the one thing that everybody listening to this, every self-employed person, you don't have to be good at maths to understand your business, and nobody understands your business better than you. And so it's my job. Consider me a translator. That's my job. Is to just translate this every single month in a way that is accessible, consumable, and just really building and keeping great financial well-being routine into your business. So we do live sessions. So every single client gets access to group sessions with all of our other clients, where once a month it's an hour long with me building and keeping a great financial well-being routine. And then the second is monk mode, where we all work on our businesses for an hour together. And so yeah, there's like 800 people really like coming together to work on their business every single month in a really safe environment, where there's an accountant to ask questions if they're logging into their government gateway, or they're planning and saving for tax, if they're doing their bookkeeping. All of those things are just building that muscle that, you know, we're not taught where that muscle is at school, let alone how to build it and keep it.
And it's about routine, isn't it? I guess a huge
Yes.
part of that. It's like, okay, now I know, and confidence and routine in that. And I guess how surround yourself, because you talked briefly that you're an introvert, and hard relate on people. I've met people that are like, no, she's not, because you know, they have
Yeah,
no idea. Like when you're an introvert, naturally, it's like, no, this takes great energy to do this, but we know the
yeah.
great things that come back by like putting ourselves out there. Do you think surrounding yourself with people that also do these kind of things, because your clients, firstly, but other people as well, really helps you keep going and manage your energy?
100%. And this is such like a feminine experience. I feel like I have two best friends. You know, the group chat where there's three of you? That's my group chat. Group chat, there's three of us. All three of us are successful business owners at different stages, like different followings, different monetary values, but like they're just my people.
Get it.
And we met up the other day. One of us had an Airbnb in London and we were like, should we go out? And then finally one of us cracked and said, can we just stay in and get a takeaway? So we stayed in and got a takeaway. Like we literally just did Deliveroo. The three of us sat there, and I like just stopped at one point and said, like, I just need to say, like, meeting you guys and like having you in my life just makes the insane stuff. It keeps me sane, because it is insane running a business at this level.
Yeah.
You know, it is, it's chaotic, it's hard. It like I'm a service-based business owner, and so I'm not just selling like little widgets or computer mice. Like I'm selling services that people
People.
come back to me. The bigger
Mhm.
my profile gets, the harder that gets, the more people would attach that to me. It's so hard, and so much of it is so hard, but being around you guys makes it feel easy. And we all just sort of like took a deep breath, and then one of them burst out laughing and said, do you know, if we were blokes, we'd be telling everyone that we were in a mastermind.
Yes, no, that's so true. I was looking at something, someone was talking about this today about a bunch of guys, like, well, they're not guys, they're just like CEOs that meet up. And she was like, are any of them parents? And it's like, there are women in it, but none of them are the main carer. And it's like, and
Yeah.
they call it something very different to what we call it. It's like a spa day, you know, when
Yes.
it's actually like, no, we are just strategizing.
And that's the thing. Yeah, I feel like if it was men maybe a little bit older than we are, we're all sort of like late 20s, early 30s, the three of us. And yeah, I feel like if it was blokes, they literally would be like posting about it on Instagram or LinkedIn, like telling everyone that they were in this like really big mastermind group, and that it's like a 7-figure only boss babe. Like that's the vibe. And the reality is like it's just so wholesome, and I don't want to turn it into a bloody members club. Like they're just my friends. And
And it's just the three of you, your friends. It's
yeah,
no, it's not something to, not everything is there to be turned into that, is it?
yeah, definitely. And I remember having conversations with people, you know, I started and scaled a business before I want to start and scale a family. James and I got married 2 years ago. We'd love to have a family. And I feel like I've learned so much about the concept that it takes a village,
Yeah.
because on a tiny scale, like running a business takes a village. It
Yeah.
sucks so much out of you. Rapidly scaling a business means rapidly scaling yourself. Sometimes one of them scales faster than the other, and that can hurt. Sometimes one scales faster than the other and it feels good. Like you have to surround yourself with people who like you're not second guessing yourself with, you're not questioning yourself, they don't make you feel shame, they don't make you feel embarrassed, they don't like I feel so grateful that I've got to experience this before parenthood, because I think I have rapidly scaled through the process. I am in weekly therapy. Like I've just built these like processes into my life that I think will make me a much more present parent. Because I think I've been in scenarios over the last few years where I feel like I've missed out on my life because I've been so busy running the business. And
Mm.
I run the business with my husband as well. So like for anyone that's listening,
That's
me
life.
and Caroline want to like bring you on the journey. And so I feel like this is episode 1 of our episode, which is pre-family, but we run the business together, we're life partners, we're business partners, and we want a family. And so like really excited to just sort of keep you guys along on the journey of what that looks like. And I'm sure I will listen to this episode back in a few years' time and laugh and be like, what was I saying? But even that, I've spoken to you before around like I have a lot of imposter syndrome talking if I feel like I'm talking to parents, because I'm not one myself. And like that's something that I've struggled with, even with clients. I find it so hard to, I've done so much work in the maternity, paternity, and shared parental leave space in the accounting industry for clients. Like we have a best in class service for people who are going on maternity leave or paternity leave as business owners. But even in those conversations, like I'm not sure if anyone will relate to it, but like pre-parent, I find a lot of like, I feel like I can't be listened to because I'm not a parent.
Oh my gosh, so much to touch on there. Firstly, you're absolutely right on the fact that scaling a business and things like that can be lonely, and going through all of that, and you've found ways not to. And I was lonely in early parenthood. So when I started a business, I was like, I'm not going to be lonely. And I've made it my mission. And I've never felt lonely as a business owner. And I think there's such truths and parallels to draw from that. On the other side of it, you're absolutely right. So for no imposter here, you are so right with that. But yes, there is so much to touch on there, because that's why I wanted to talk, because I think you recognizing you've got a lot to learn, we've got a lot to learn, I feel like brings such a valid conversation. We should be having more of these conversations of like, I want to have children, I want to learn more, I want to understand this. Am I getting this right? And we're like,
Mm.
and us on the other side, not scaremongering, which I feel like can be a bit of a thing, or being like, "Ugh, you're not a parent, you don't know," which
Yeah.
for so many reasons we know is so wrong now, because you never know someone's journey with fertility, circumstance, just life. We're living in a cost of living crisis. You just don't know what people are dealing with.
Yeah.
So you'd never say that. But I've witnessed people saying this, so people
Mm.
still say this. But that must be a thing. So from our side, it's right. How can we be less patronizing and be like, well, you're not a parent? And from your side, which you're clearly doing, how can you be like, right, tell me what your needs are, how can
Mm.
we support you? And I think naturally, as a service-based business owner, you're in the privileged position, you would do that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've set up this business in mind for having children. Has this always been part of the conversation? And do you mind me asking any questions you're not comfortable with? Because from my side, it's
Nothing's
not
off limits,
natural
you
for
know.
me. It's not natural for me to start talking to non-parents these questions, because we know we shouldn't unless we're given permission and we're good
No,
friends.
you have my implicit permission and you are my friend, so we're fine. Yeah, so we've scaled very rapidly. Like it's not normal, especially for service-based businesses. It's worth saying, are entirely bootstrapped. We've never exchanged any equity cash. It's all self-scaling, self-funding. So I've gone from a standing start to 1.5 million pounds in 4 years. We've got 20 members of staff, 2 offices, one in Oxford, one in Manchester. I think sometimes people really underestimate the intentionality. And I think for me, that's something that if I become a parent, I would be so keen to talk about the fact that as a young woman, I was 26 when I became self-employed. And as a 26-year-old woman who had someone who I loved, was engaged to, planning to be married to, I knew I had 2 choices. I either had to scale the business past the point that I could remove myself from it, which is
Yeah.
where I'm at now. And even that still feels sticky and hard, and I don't know what that looks like. And I'm a content creator as well. What does that look like? There's still so many questions. But in terms of
Oh,
the
yeah,
day-to-day
all the
running of the
feels.
practice, yeah, like
And I just on a podcast with someone who did that. So yeah, no, this is so interesting to talk about.
yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people look at you and make assumptions that you wouldn't be intentional with everything you do,
Mm.
when in fact you are.
Yeah, and so like it was very much a like, we either need to like tick this along and turn it into a lifestyle business until we have children, and one of us just leads it, probably my husband, for 17,000 reasons, which are probably biased. And then, or we need to scale it past the point of, you know, I'm at the point now where I could turn my phone off for 3 months and the business would still grow without me.
Well
Again,
done.
that's huge. Yeah, most
And I'm
people get to
saying
the
that in a
point.
non-patronizing way. I'm like, how can I do that?
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? So I do a lot of like consulting with specifically female business owners who want to find a way to step out of the business when they have a baby or have a family. And very often a really, really strong part of that conversation is there are 3 types of business owners. There are business owners who can turn their phone off temporarily to go on holiday, but they come back with the same workload as they had before. They were just off. There are business owners who can turn their phone off for 2 to 4 weeks and their business stay the same. Doesn't get worse, but it doesn't get better. And then there's business owners who can turn their phone off for 3 months and their business still grow while they're there. And that's the goal for everyone, right? You want your business to be able to grow while you're not in it, because life happens. Like, there's 17 reasons that we would do that, but those are like the really 3 key models. And for us, like, that was the opportunity. And I think for me, as someone who didn't grow up in a family that was hugely privileged, like my mum was a full-time parent, I knew from the second of being self-employed that I didn't know what I'd want, and I don't know what I'll want until I become a parent for the first time, but I know that I want a choice. And for me, the ultimate form of privilege, and the entire reason I became self-employed and worked hard to make a lot of money, is to give myself choices. Because you can't predict how you'll feel, you can't predict what you want, but privilege to me is having a choice over what parenting looks like.
I love that. And it's kind of, you have gone down that route all in of like, I'm going to get my career to a certain stage so I have this choice kind of thing. Because I think that's where I I think a lot of us thought we might get there, and then life happens and you don't, you get setbacks, or your career path doesn't go the right way. And it's just incredible to kind of see that and kind of listen to it and be open about it, because it is that, like, how can I give myself choice without delaying things too much or like impacting things kind of thing. And do you think, you felt this together, you and James, do you think it would be very different if you were a man running your business right now? Like, from that perspective.
I have so many things to say. How long have you got on this one?
Oh.
So there's a couple of things that have been really interesting. So after I became an accountant, I did an MBA, and which is a master's in business, and it's like a super prestigious qualification to have. Like, and I was so excited. And I, at the end of my MBA, had to present a business plan for a business that I had imagined. For anyone who's listening, I'm doing inverted commas. I had imagined a business. I was scaling StriveX at the same time as doing my MBA. And so I did the business plan based on StriveX. And I'd put in all of the plans to remove myself from the business for 3 years. And it was a shit hot business plan. It was a 10 out of 10. I presented this business plan alongside 5 men who also presented business plans. I was the only person that was pulled up. It's also, I was the same age as everybody that was presenting alongside me. Same age, just a different gender. I stood up and presented, and I was the only person that was picked on by a panel of 4 judges for not having incorporated family planning into my business plan. I have been at networking events where, as the only female, and this was actually at an MBA reunion.
So you were the only one who was picked on for that. No one else had included family planning.
No one else was challenged. No one was challenged. I've literally been at networking events where, as the only young female business owner, an older male business owner passed me his drink and said, "I'll have another one, please," because he thought I worked there. And my outfit was great. I didn't look like a waitress.
I was not wearing all black or white and black.
Yeah. And again, I
wish to say that was like, truth, but it's that thing, isn't it? Of like, yeah.
And I say as well, like, me and James have like parallel experiences of having grown the business together.
Yes, exactly. You must have like comparison.
And like, at so many touch points, I get asked about what you can do when you have a family. You can take maternity leave, and every single time I say, "Oh, I'm not sure. Let me just ask my husband." You're like, why is it different? And I know why it's different. Yeah. But again, like, you have to have boundaries. Like, why is it acceptable? What if I burst out into tears and said I can't have children? Like, ask people this stuff.
I feel like sometimes when people ask you like awkward questions, like about having another or something, they're kind of asking for like the awkward response. Like, I just started to do, like, when people were asking me about a third, I'm like, well, my second almost died, so I've got to do some recovery trauma therapy on that. Like, you're asking me an awkward question, so I'm going to give you the realistic answer. But it's so true. It's kind of like, either ask everyone of a certain age or ask no one kind of thing. And I do wonder what kind of people are asking you. Do you think sometimes it might be, it's like the how do you do it question. So I feel like sometimes I'm being asked by other mothers who are literally like, how on earth like do you do
Mm.
this? Because I need to know the secrets kind of thing. And so do you think sometimes it might be mothers who are like, you know, not happy with their where they are, might not have been happy with their maternity leave, and be like, well, how are you going to do this kind of
Mm.
thing? You know, do you
And
think?
I'd say actually like it, just hearing you say that out loud has made me realize that I think that's where a lot of my fear of talking about wanting to be a parent comes from, is there's a split between it being very clumsy men asking the
Yeah,
question.
yeah, let's leave the clumsy man aside.
We'll park them for a sec. Clumsy men and actually women who are parents are very often the people who are asking me those questions. And I think that's actually where a lot of my fear of talking about it has come from. And when every single time we've spoken offline, I just have this huge desire to speak very openly about it as much as I feel comfortable doing so, because like so few people, like I can't go online, I can't go on any mainstream media, not even content creation platforms like YouTube, and like really, really in depth, like watch the decision making process that people go through as business owners that decide to become parents. And I want more of that. I want more of that to be in the world.
Definitely. And I feel like, you know, because we talk about it in retrospect here, and it's like, I think the learnings are sometimes it goes bad, sometimes it goes good, sometimes it's neutral. I think it's that, I think I've just come off a podcast recently from Shivy at the Positive Birth Company, who's amazing because she's like had her business through 4 children. And, you know, there's lots of different factors, things that happen. And I think it's that control thing of like, and I feel like it's probably the most out of control place we can be in is
Yeah.
about to start a family, and embracing that is the hardest thing to do for so many people, especially women who've been kind of conditioned to be a certain way in control of things.
Oh, and it's I sometimes feel so scared for like parent Rachel, because I am the most like type A organized, but like anxious organized, almost
um Highly
controlling,
function
like
anxiety, my
yeah,
husband diagnosed me with a few years
yeah,
ago.
yeah, like that's very much like my personality type. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a wonderful change. I'm going to be on the positive side because there's lots of wonderful changes. But I think these conversations are so important to think about. It's like you are doing it now and you are doing the sensible thing of preparing it. But not just that, you are bringing a great service to parents for them to feel prepared and to listen to them and understand them from a service perspective. And do you think if we lived in a society where we did talk about this more, it could help parents in the workplace and as business owners hugely?
100%. I saw something the other day that was a woman was on a Zoom call, like, and it was a whole team Zoom call. And a man was late to the meeting. There was like 20 people on the call. And man was late to the meeting and he came on, he took himself off video and off mute and was like, guys, I've just had a 12-week scan with my wife and we found out it's twins. I'm like so excited to tell you all that we're having a baby. And obviously it was great and everyone celebrated, but this woman came off the call and just reflected so hard on the fact that like if a woman came on a Zoom call before speaking to HR, before telling their direct line manager, and before putting a maternity plan in place, went on a Zoom call and told 20 members of staff that they were having twins, HR would literally be like, what have you done?
It's so
And
true, isn't it?
it like that story lingered with me for like
Mm,
days afterwards. And I don't think it's an easy fix, but I think just having real open, potentially uncomfortable conversations around why does it look a certain way. And like even within my industry there is a 50-50 male to female entry rate into the industry,
okay.
but less than 7% of leadership positions are taken by women in
Hmm. Hmm.
accounting. And again, that is so much down to maternity, gender pay gap, gender wealth gap, like all of these things are happening in the finance industry. And like for there to be, because I get asked all the time, is there a gender split in the finance industry? Like, is it imbalanced? And I have to say, well, technically no at the start, but actually there's a bigger problem here, because what's happening to everyone that comes out, and I'm there with a disproportionately, my husband is the only male manager at Strivex, everybody else is female. And so it's, yeah, there's just so many things to be done. But I think a lot of it comes around very respectful, not clumsy, but sometimes uncomfortable conversations around what we're doing about this.
That's it, and holding companies accountable, because you must know this as well. Like if you have a diverse leadership board as well, so more women on your board, you're literally going to be a more profitable business, I heard this morning. And so it literally makes financial state as well as being the right thing to do. But that's such an interesting point, is I feel like we focus so much on like, oh great, 50-50 gender split, more women coming into finance. And this is the area that I like to talk about, is
Mhm.
that if you've especially come from quite a privileged background, nice education, or just a family that have really encouraged you, you can do whatever you want as a woman now, be who you want to be, go off, live on your own, get a job. And then we're missing this key part of the education, is what does that look like though when I become a mother?
Definitely.
Yeah. And so how do you, with your StriveX hat, how did you start supporting your clients from that perspective? I'd love to know, just like, because it's just so refreshing to hear an accountancy firm. So if I came self-employed, I need to take maternity leave, help me.
All right, cool. So the service line was built from a problem, which I feel like most businesses get started because either someone's pissed off or there's a problem. But this service line and this sort of like unique part of the business that we've built came from a problem, which is that a client came to me, and it was a client that has been with us from dining room table vibes. And she said, I'm pregnant. And I was like, cool. Why are you talking to me? And I think there's a really big misconception between accountants, HR advisors, and sort of people's legal teams of like whose responsibility it is to tackle maternity pay, paternity pay, and shared parental leave in self-employed land. Because, and I felt quite like, well, this isn't a me thing. If this was a me thing, I would have been taught about it in my exams. And at no point during the many exams that I sat was nobody spoke to me about shared parental leave, period.
Yeah.
So I was really like, cool. So what are we doing? Like, who do you need to speak to? And she was like, well, I've kind of looked online, and it looks like there's no one to speak to. It looks like there's just this like online calculator. I just fill in the dates of my pregnancy, and that's it. And we'd built a really good relationship, and I sort of knew her well enough to say, like, I really feel like I'm letting you down. I think there's a huge gap here between HR advice, accounting advice, business planning, and the legal side of what you're entitled to.
Mm.
And I think we need to work together to build something that sits in the middle of all of it. She was super happy. Like she was, again, we knew each other very well. So I knew very early on in her pregnancy that she was pregnant. And I said, like, can we just go away? If you're happy to be a bit of a guinea pig, like, let me go away and work out what your options are, and we can just work together. And that was 3 years ago. And since then, we now have a maternity contingency planning team. We have a maternity strategy business plan template. And so we now have the solid process where if a client comes to us and tells us that they're pregnant, they have lots of on-demand resources that they can consume in their own time, in their own headspace, with a partner on their own. They can watch it as many times as they want, and then they can choose how they deal with it next. Some people really like to just consume the information that we've got on demand and make their own decisions and just come to us and say, hey, I'm going to be taking maternity pay. Can we just chat about payroll? Other people are like, okay, I've looked at all of the options. I want enhanced maternity pay. Like, how can we work at pulling together a business plan that means I can take enhanced maternity pay at a good rate, reclaim lots of it from HMRC, and get my business to the point where I'm earning passive income? Like, I want to sort of have some consulting sessions to build passive elements
Amazing.
into my business, so I can do that too.
Do you have to be direct to like, so forgive me, just so if I ask you this question, do you, is someone taking enhanced maternity pay, do you need to be a director of your own company, or can you be self-employed to go down those routes?
Good question. So if you are self-employed, you've got maternity allowance, full stop.
Yeah.
But I'll come back to that. As a limited company, you've got maternity allowance if you're not eligible for maternity pay, and then you also have enhanced maternity pay. So if you are a director of a limited company, we've got three options: enhanced maternity pay, and maternity allowance. As a sole trader, we've got maternity allowance, but we can still do a lot of the business planning. So as a sole trader, you can claim maternity allowance, but
Mm.
people very often forget that on top of maternity allowance, you can still pay yourself all of the profits from your trade. And so
Yes,
again,
yes.
doing things like building passive income streams, it's just the way that you're paying yourself is different over here versus as a limited company. But as a sole trader, in terms of support from HMRC, it's going to be maternity allowance, but we can still do lots of very serious maternity contingency business planning to build passive income streams. And I've literally worked with someone once came to me and I was like, oh boy, this is a head scratcher. Like, she came on the call and on the call told me, I am pregnant. I am a watercolor artist and I want to turn my business into passive income. And
Wow.
she'd paid for an hour of my time. And at the end of the 60 minutes, she had 3 different products available to sell completely passively that we basically
Amazing.
turned into watercolor tutorials delivered by Amazon, where they buy a package from her that automatically buys things from an Amazon list. She gets affiliate Amazon revenue from them buying those products, and they get a downloadable video of her doing step-by-step tutorial teaching them how to paint. And so it's completely passive. She's not even responsible for the delivery because that's all Amazon. She's monetized the delivery of the product. She's monetized the videos. She can build up a mailing list. She's got recurring revenue. Like, I just absolutely love that side of the business. Like, that is, if I've said like high level consulting, like that's what I mean. Like, people literally just book time, come with a problem, and I'm like, well, we've got an hour to work it out. Let's see what we can do.
I'm sold, Rachel.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite examples, because she was literally like devastated. Like, she'd become self-employed after having 2 children, and it was a surprise to the child. So she was like not in a, like, she literally was like quite upset. And it's just the most profound, impactful piece of work that you can do. But it's my favorite example because like it's a very hands-on job. Like, she's a watercolor artist and literally up to that point in the business had only ever exchanged her time for money doing bespoke commissions. And we managed to like turn it into this completely on-demand product that was actually going to fuel her maternity leave.
I love this because you literally hear so many self-employed people saying, oh, but it's me, that people only buy from me. And it's kind of like, you've just got to be creative, and it's not easy. You've got to put in the time and the work, but there will be a way to manage this or support this.
Definitely.
Oh, excellent. And so with the limited company, did you say, so there are 3 other ways you can do it? Allowance.
Yeah, so in the limited company, you have to be eligible in order to get maternity pay. So if you're not eligible for maternity pay, it's maternity allowance. Common misconception is that one is higher or lower than the other. They're not. They're absolutely the same amount of money. So the only difference is how we process it. So we've got maternity pay, maternity allowance, or enhanced maternity pay. With enhanced maternity pay, we need to have business planning. We need a business plan. We need to be able to prove to HMRC why you're eligible to claim enhanced maternity pay, because we can reclaim a lot of that maternity pay from HMRC. And within there as well, we've also incorporated hands-free payroll filing service, which is where we can agree in advance for a fixed term, normally between 9 and 12 months for maternity leave, a fixed term where you sign off and agree your maternity plan, and we process payroll without you even having to touch it. You just get a pay slip every single month, and we can do that. And an extra layer over and above that as well is if you are an employer or you're self-employed, you need to pay yourself maternity pay, but you're actually quite short on cash, you can apply for an advanced payment of maternity into your bank account, so you get paid before you have to pay either yourself or a member of staff for maternity pay as well.
This is so valuable. I feel like you should be teaching this across the country and all our schools and things. We're going to wrap up soon, but is one of your fears, have you ever seen the fact that people, I just read a statistic, it's like something like careers after babies, 50% of other people perceive mothers as not ambitious or don't care about their careers. Have you ever experienced this with the people you work with and their concerns, or even yourself?
Yeah, I'd say it's one of my biggest fears. Like, genuinely, I've actually really toyed with not telling people that I was pregnant, not telling people that I'd become a parent, for literally that exact reason. Like, I think as a young woman in specifically in the finance industry, like, I've worked so hard to not just be taken seriously, but for people to be like, oh shit, like this is really like, you're doing great things. And I feel like I've pushed that boulder up a hill, and now it's just going to get steeper. Like, that my career is in some way going to come to an end, or the speaking gigs will dry up, the TV opportunities will go away. Like, that is a huge fear of mine, and I think the fact that I feel like I should be hiding it is part of the problem, and it's why I never would. I think a lot of my community online, a lot of people that follow me online, it's very personal and very open. I'm not like a cold hard finance platform. Like, it's me, and would feel like I was lying to people. And I think that, yeah, the fact that I feel it's like talking about money. The fact that you think you shouldn't talk about money is part of the problem, and the only way to make it better for anyone is to talk about money. It's exactly the same thing with being a parent. I think we all just need to have better conversations. And even for me, that's really fed into the way that I operate as an employer. We employ lots of people who are parents, and just having, from a cultural perspective, but also a very practical perspective, making sure that you as a workplace, as an employer, is built for parents. And we have employees who, without the flexible working that we offer, would have to work part-time, and they work full-time.
Oh, do they? Brilliant. I love that. And thank you for being so honest there about your fears for it. And on the other side of it, how can, because we've talked about you, how you help us, how as mothers and business owners can we help you in these conversations and to feel more secure going into that?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I guess I meant what I said earlier, and I think a lot of that fear comes from what can sometimes feel like quite loaded questions. And I think sometimes it's a spiral, right? Like if I say one thing and get a loaded question back, the next thing that I say, I could get a genuine question back, but it feels loaded because I feel defensive. And I think, yeah, just like super honest, open, transparent conversations. Like you said, sometimes it can feel like not patronizing, but like you wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
There's sometimes definitely a tone of that, specifically on the internet. There's a tone of that. So
I think that's it. It's the internet harshness. So you've probably got some real tired mum at 3 a.m. going, God's sakes, you wait.
Yeah, just wait.
Like,
yeah.
I know it's like, no, that we need less of that. Go send that to your friends who are doing it as well. And let's all be supportive in this. So, and on that note, Rachel, honestly, thank you so much. I don't know, like pre-parenthood, if I would have done this, I definitely was very defensive about talking about this sort of stuff and had my wrong point of views. And it's so lovely to meet someone so open and just really wants to hear each other out. And thank you so much, Rachel. Where can people find you, especially if they're planning for maternity leave and need your help?
Of course. Yeah, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us today. So I create content across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can find me everywhere that you consume content at accountant_she.
Amazing. Well, Rachel, I'm looking forward to welcoming you back and talking about the next stage of your journey when you get
Very
there.
excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.